Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतीरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त नमस्ते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 5, Vidura talks with Maitreya. And we are in the first section of this chapter. So this chapter is divided into 5 sections basically. Text 1 to 9 is Vidura's questions to Maitreya. Then text 10 to 16, there is Vidura's exclusive interest in Krishna Katha. So very beautiful verses are going to come. And then 17 to 21, here Maitreya is honoring Vidura, knowing the exalted position of Vidura. 22nd to 38, Maitreya describes creation. And then 39 to 51, the chapter will conclude with prayers of the elemental demigods. Okay. So we are in the section of Vidura. He is asking questions to Maitreya Muni. So we come to text 9. येन प्रजानामुतात्मकर्म रूपा रूपाभिधानां च विदां व्यदत्त नारायणो विश्वसृकात्मयोनिर् एतच्च नो वर्णय विप्रव्यवर्य. Translation.
O chief amongst the Brahmanas, please also describe how Narayana, the creator of the universe and the self sufficient Lord, has differently created the natures, activities, forms, features, and names of the different living creatures. Purport. Every living being is under the plan of his natural inclination in terms of the modes of material nature. His work is manifested in terms of the nature of the three modes. His form and bodily features are designed according to his work, and his name is designated according to his bodily features. For example, the higher classes of men are white, Shukla, and the lower classes of men are black. This division of white and black is in terms of one's white and black duties of life. Pious acts leads one to take birth in a good and highly placed family, to become rich, to become learned, and to acquire beautiful bodily features. Impious acts lead one to become poor by parentage, to be always in want, to become a fool or illiterate, and to acquire ugly bodily features. Vidura requested Maitreya to explain these differences between all the living creatures made by Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
So Vidura is also asking, my dear chief of the Brahmanas, O Maitreya Muni, please explain how Lord Narayana differently created the natures, activities, form, features, and the names of different living creatures. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that every living being is acting under the three modes of material nature instinctively. So this is a very important thing to know. That his work is manifested by the three modes of nature. And unless he exclusively tries to transcend the three modes of material nature, he will simply lead a extinct, whatever is the instinctive life. Just like pig will be naturally attracted to the stool. It doesn't have to tell the pig that here is the stool and get attracted. As soon as he's born, he will be running towards the stool. Tiger will be running towards to jump on a goat and try to bifurcate the goat, try to eat the hunt the goat. And the cow will naturally run towards the greenery or grass or something like that. So these are the animals in the three modes of material nature, and they will, by their basic instinct, will act accordingly. But when the living entity decides to transcend the three modes of material nature, then one can perform a different activity. And that's why Arjuna is asking this question, that, my Lord, what is the easiest way to transcend the three modes of material nature? And Krishna's answer there, Bhagavad Gita 11.55, that the three modes of material nature can be transcended by performance of devotional service. Here Prabhupada says, there are the personalities whose activities are Shukla or Surya. Uh, you know, these are called as Sura. Whereas the personalities whose activities are black, and they are called as Asura. And by nature, of course, Asura can become Asura by the uh, misuse of the free will, or Asura can become Asura, just like Prahlad Maharaj, Bali Maharaj. Although they were born in the Asura family, they are the best of the devotees, what to speak of much greater than being a demigod. But the instinctively, the activities will lead to. And this is how one can also explain how one's this life conditions are acquired. Pious life will lead to Janma Aishwarya Shrutashrivihi. Impious activities may lead to the otherwise activities, and therefore Vidura is requesting Maitreya Muni to explain the differences between all these creatures who are made by Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 10. परावरेशां भगवान् व्रतानि श्रुतानि मे व्यासमुखादभिक्षणम् अतृप्तं क्षुल्कसुखावहाहनां तेषामृते कृष्णकथाम् अमृतौघात्. Translation.
Translation: O my Lord, I have repeatedly heard about these higher and lower statuses of human society from the mouth of Vyasadeva, and I am quite satiated with all these lesser subject matters and their happiness. They have not satisfied me with the nectar of topics about Krishna. Purport: because people are very much interested in hearing social and historical presentation, Srila Vyasadeva has compiled many books such as the Purana and Mahabharata. These books are regarding matter for the mass of people, and they were compiled with a view to reviving their God consciousness, now forgotten in the conditional life of material existence. The real purpose of such literature is not so much to present topics of historical references, but to revive the people's sense of God consciousness. For example, Mahabharata is the history of the battle of Kurukshetra, and common people read it because it is full of topics regarding the social, political, and economic problems of human society. But factually, the most important part of Mahabharata is Bhagavad Gita, which is automatically taught to readers along with the historical narrations of the Battle of Kurukshetra. Vidura explained to Maitreya his position of being fully satiated with the knowledge of mundane social and political topics and having no more interest in them. He was anxious to hear transcendental topics regarding Lord Krishna. Because there were insufficient topics directly concerning Krishna in the Puranas, Mahabharata, etc., he was not satisfied and wanted to know more about Krishna. Krishna Katha or topics regarding Krishna are transcendental and there is no satiation in hearing such topics. Bhagavad Gita is important on account of its being Krishna Katha or speeches delivered by Lord Krishna. The story of the Battle of Kurukshetra may be interesting for the mass of people, But to a person like Vidura, who is highly advanced in devotional service, only Krishna Katha and that which is dovetailed with Krishna Katha is interesting. Vidura wanted to hear of everything from Maitreya, and so he inquired from him, but he desired that all the topics be in relationship with Krishna. As fire is never satisfied in its consumption of firewood, so a pure devotee of the Lord never hears enough about Krishna. Historical events and other narrations concerning social and political incidents all become transcendental as soon as they are in relationship with Krishna. That is the way to transform mundane things into spiritual identity. The whole world can be transferred into Vaikuntha if all worldly activities are dovetailed with Krishna Katha. There are two important Krishna Kathas current in the world, Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavad Gita is Krishna Katha because it is spoken by Krishna, whereas Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna Katha because it narrates about Krishna. Lord Chaitanya advised all his disciples to preach Krishna Katha all over the world without discrimination because the transcendental value of Krishna Katha can purify one and all from material contamination. Hare Krishna.
Now, Vidura, he said, "My dear Maitreya Muni, I have enough heard the topics which are related to the social political things. And more I hear Krishna Katha, the Amrita topics, I am never satiated. So please go on speaking Krishna Katha." In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that there are topics in the Puranas and Mahabharata, and these are compiled to revive people's general sense of God consciousness. So that is the real purpose of this literature, that they will people want to hear about climax, people want to hear about politics, people want to hear about war, people want to hear about some tragedy, people have different rasa that they want to satiate, that they want to be satisfied by hearing so many different narrations. That's why you see the Harry Potter series, that's why you will see different series satisfying a particular rasa, a particular people they are looking for. And therefore the history which is written especially as Ramayana, Mahabharata and Puranas is so fascinating that it gives all the rasas in an amazing way. It's like, if you start reading Ramayana, Mahabharata or Ramayana, hours and hours you can just sit with Mahabharata or Ramayana, and it will just move on so beautifully. But what is the important point there? Along with entertaining people, they will also educate people and revive a general sense of God consciousness. For example, Prabhupada says Mahabharata is the history of Battle of Kurukshetra. So if you just start reading Mahabharata, by the time you flip on some first 100 pages, you will land in Battle of Kurukshetra. All those entire life of Pandavas and everything is just first 100 pages, and then the major you land in Battle of Kurukshetra. And then Battle of Kurukshetra, what is the most important part? That is Bhagavad Gita. So Vidura explained to Maitreya that, my dear Maitreya, I am fully satiated with the knowledge of the mundane social and political topics. Throughout my life, I was into this only, social life and the political life. And in being so, trying to protect the Pandavas. And therefore, I now want to hear pure Krishna Katha. And here Prabhupada says the Krishna Katha, there are only Krishna Katha which is dovetailed is interests a devotee. Just like the fire is never satiated, never satisfied by consuming more and more wood we provide to the fire will be inflamed even bigger. Similarly, a pure devotee of the Lord, his thirst for hearing Krishna Katha is never satiated. He will never enough hear Krishna Katha, and therefore he always wanted to hear Krishna Katha. So Prabhupada says, and therefore it is very important that whatever hearing we are doing, the speaker should be soaked in Krishna. This is how His Grace Radhesham Prabhu used to tell us that, certain, like he was telling that whom we should hear, whom we should not hear. Not that in the name of Krishna Katha you speak all types of different things, and just Krishna comes, मराठीमध्ये आपण म्हणतो ना तोंडी लावण्यापुरता. Krishna comes something like, just 1 to 100th part of one's discussion, that is not a right thing to hear. When we are a spiritual personality, when we are hearing from a spiritual personality, the topic should be spiritual topics that we should be hearing. Right? It's very, very important. Otherwise, it will not give us the full satisfaction. Therefore, Aishampru used to tell, that like when way back 25 years, he used to tell us how to give a lecture, then he used to tell us example of Bhakti Rasamrit Swami Maharaj. That time he was known as Devamrit Prabhu. Very famous series he had, Devamrit Prabhu, DD series that we used to hear. Day in, day out, we used to hear. And Radhesham Prabhu used to tell us that his Devamrit Prabhu's lectures, they are soaked in Krishna. This is the exact word, soaked in Krishna. Just like the sponge will absorb the water or sponge will absorb the ink. Similarly, devotee's mind should absorb Krishna. And when we are speaking, we should be also speaking in such a way that we should be delivering the pure Krishna Katha. Of course, it should be according to time, place, circumstances. It should be entertaining. It should be enlivening to people. But it should be purity of Krishna Katha. That is very important. Srila Prabhupada further writes, there are two important Krishna Kathas. One is Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavad Gita is by Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam is about Krishna. And these numbers should be on the fingertips of a devotee. Bhagavad Gita, how many shlokas are there?
700.
You can chat. Yeah, 700. Bhagavatam, how many shlokas are there?
18,000.
18,000. Bhagavad Gita, how many adhyayas are there?
18.
18. Bhagavatam, how many adhyayas are there?
365.
335. Correct.
335.
335. Bhagavatam, how many cantos are there?
12 cantos.
12 cantos are there. How many subject matters are discussed in Bhagavad Gita?
10.
5. Bhagavad Gita.
5. Yeah.
Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, Karma. And
Yes.
Srimad Bhagavatam, how many subject matters are discussed in Bhagavatam?
10.
10. Sarga, Visarga. Okay. Those 10. So, Bhagavad Gita is by Krishna and Bhagavatam is about Krishna. And these are, the most important part of direct Krishna Katha. So this is Vidura is saying, my dear Maitreya ji, please describe to me the pure Krishna Katha. I am never satiated. Hearing through, I have already heard enough from Vyasadeva. And who is Vyasadeva? Vyasadeva is father of Vidura, right? And but still, still, I am more and more eager to hear about Krishna Katha. Text 11. So now we are entering the second section of this chapter, text 10 to 16. So he is specifically requesting that please speak about Krishna Katha. So it is not that in Bhagavatam only the 10th canto is about Krishna Katha. Every canto there is a reference to Lord Krishna, and 10th canto is very, very specifically Krishna Katha. Right. So here we see now text 11. कतप्नुयातीर्थपदाभिधानात् सत्रेषु सुरभिर्ईड्यमान सुरभि सत्रेषु वः सुरभिईड्यमानात् यः करणाडिं पुरुषस्य यातो भवप्रदां गेहरतिं चिनत्ति. Translation.
Who in the human society can be satisfied without hearing sufficient talk of the Lord, whose lotus feet are the sum total of all places of pilgrimage, and who is worshipped by great sages and devotees? Such topics can cut off one's bondage to family affection simply by entering the holes of one's ears. Purport. Krishna Katha is so powerful that simply by entering into person's ear, it can at once give deliverance from the bondage of family affection. Family affection is an illusory manifestation of the external energy, and it is the only impetus for all mundane activities. As long as there is mundane activity and the mind is absorbed in such engagement, one has to undergo the repetition of birth and death in the current material science. People are most influenced by the mode of ignorance, and some are influenced by the passionate mode of material nature. And under the spell of these two modes, a living being is actuated by the material conception of life. The mundane qualities do not allow a living entity to understand his real position. The qualities of both ignorance and passion strongly bind one to the illusory bodily conception of the self. The best among the fools who are thus deluded are those who engage in altruistic activities under the spell of the material mode of passion. Bhagavad Gita, which is direct Krishna Katha, gives humanity the elementary lesson that the body is perishable and that the consciousness which is spread throughout the body is imperishable. The conscious being, the imperishable self, is eternally existent and cannot be killed under any circumstances, even after the dissolution of the body. Anyone who misunderstands this perishable body to be the self and who works for it in the name of sociology, politics, philanthropy, altruism, nationalism, or internationalism under the false plea of the bodily conception of life is certainly a fool and does not know implications of reality and unreality. Some of them are above the modes of ignorance and passion, and are situated in the mode of goodness. But mundane goodness is always contaminated by tinges of ignorance and passion. Mundane goodness can enlighten one that the body and the self are different, and one in goodness is concerned with the self and not the body. But due to being contaminated, those in mundane goodness cannot understand the real nature of the self as a person. Their impersonal conception of the self is distinct from the body, keeps them in the mode of goodness within material nature, and unless they are attracted by Krishna Katha, they will never be liberated from the bondage of material existence. Krishna Katha is the only remedy for all people on the world because it can situate one in pure consciousness of the self and liberate one from the material bondage. To preach Krishna Katha all over the world, as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, is the greatest missionary activity, and all sensible men and women of the world may join in this great movement started by Lord Chaitanya.
So now, Vidura is saying, who in the human society can be satiated, satisfied without being hearing the sufficient talks about the Supreme Lord? And that Supreme Lord, now he glorifies the Supreme Lord in three ways. Whose lotus feet are the sum total of all places of pilgrimage, who is worshipped by the great sages and devotees, and topics concerning to the Supreme Lord can completely destroy one's affection to samsara chakram parivartayedyat. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that Krishna Katha is so powerful that simply by entering into the person's ear, it can at once deliver one from the bondage of samsara or the family affection. Family affection is the illusory manifestation. So again, we have the context has to be clear. Vidura is speaking this at the age of say 250 years, minimum 200 years, after the lifetime of performing his own family duties. And Srila Prabhupada is also writing this after lifetime performance of his own family duties. It's like, when somebody does PhD and then starts reading Bhagavad Gita, and then he will say, all my education is just nonsense compared to Bhagavad Gita. Or Warren Buffett can say that money is nothing, just an exchange value. Right. So this is why we are discussing this is not to make somebody irresponsible, but to make somebody very, very responsible at the same time, completely attached to Krishna Katha. So mundane activities, the mind is absorbed in such engagements, and therefore devotees of the Lord, they are very careful about this. Further, Srila Prabhupada says, the real power is power of Krishna Katha. But in the name of helping people, many times people help simply on the bodily platform, and the body is perishable, whereas the consciousness is imperishable. Therefore, offering help only on the bodily platform is not sufficient, right? The help has to be offered on the platform of both body and the soul. That is very important. And that's why you will see ISKCON is engaged in so many activities like prasad distribution. There are more than billions of plates are distributed every year. But it is not just food relief, it is prasad. So food is for the body, and the prasad element of that food will purify the soul and will bring one nearer to Krishna. And therefore, the help should not just remain a mundane help, but it should transcend the bodily platform and come to the platform of the soul, nourishing both body and the soul. So this is what Srila Prabhupada mentions here. The mundane mode of goodness is always tinged by passion and ignorance. And even if the so-called goodness, then also they can distinguish between the body and the self, but again cannot understand the real nature of the self, that is to perform the devotional service to the Supreme Lord. And therefore, a devotee of the Lord should always be engaged in spreading the pure Krishna Katha. And this is the instruction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Pruthavityache yada nagarati gram sarvatra prachar. And then another instruction. Jara dekha tarakah Krishna upadesh. Amaragya Guruhana Tarai Desh. So Jara Dekha Tarakah Krishna Upadesh. So Prabhupada says one has to preach Krishna Katha all over the world, and this is the greatest missionary activities that one can take up according to one's capacity and be part of the mission started by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 12. So very intensely here, Vidurji is praying to Maitreya Munis, please speak about directly about Krishna. मुनिर्विवक्षो भगवद्गुणानां सखापि ते भारतमाह कृष्ण यस्मिन्द्रणां ग्राम्य सुखैनुवादैर्मतिर्गृहीतां नु हरे कथायाम्. Translation.
Your friend, the great sage Krishna, Dvaipayana, Vyasa has already described the transcendental qualities of the Lord in his great work, the Mahabharata. But the whole idea is to draw the attention of the mass of the people to Krishna Katha, Bhagavad Gita, through their strong affinity for hearing mundane topics. Purport: the great sage Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa is the author of all Vedic literature, of which his works Vedanta Sutra, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Mahabharata are very popular readings. As stated in Bhagavatam 1.4.25, Srila Vyasadeva compiled the Mahabharata for the less intelligent class of men who take more interest in mundane topics than in the philosophy of life. The Vedanta Sutra was compiled for the persons already above the mundane topics, who might already have tasted the bitterness of the so-called happiness of mundane affairs. The first aphorism of Vedanta Sutra is Atho Brahma Jigyasa. Example, only when one has finished the business of mundane inquiries in the marketplace of sense gratification can one make relevant inquiries regarding Brahman, the transcendence. Those persons who are busy with the mundane inquiries which fill the newspaper and other such literatures are classified as Stri Shudra Dvija Bandhus, or women, labor class, and unworthy sons of higher classes like Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya. Such less intelligent men cannot understand the purpose of Vedanta Sutra, although they may make a show of studying the sutras in a perverted way. The real purpose of Vedanta Sutra is explained by the author himself in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And anyone trying to understand Vedanta Sutra without referring to Srimad Bhagavatam is certainly misguided. Such misguided person who are interested in the mundane affairs of philanthropic and altruistic work under the misconception of the body as self could better take advantage of the Mahabharata, which was sufficiently compiled by Srila Vyasadeva for their benefit. The great author has compiled the Mahabharata in such a way that the less intelligent class of men who are more interested in mundane topics may read the Mahabharata with great relish and in the course of such mundane happiness can also take advantage of Bhagavad Gita. The preliminary study of Srimad Bhagavatam or the Vedanta Sutra. Srila Vyasadeva had no interest in writing a history of mundane activities other than to give less intelligent person a chance for transcendental realization through Bhagavad Gita. Vidura's reference to Mahabharata indicates that he had heard the Mahabharata from Vyasadeva, his real father, while he was away from home and was touring the places of pilgrimage. Hare Krishna.
Vidura further says, your friend, the great sage Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas. So now here Vidura is referring to Vyasadeva as the friend of Maitreya and not his own father. Now Vyasadeva has already described the transcendental qualities of the Lord in the great work Mahabharata. But the whole idea is that to draw attention of the common masses of people to Krishna Katha through the entertaining topics of Mahabharata. So it is just like the mother gives kadwa dawa to the child in the chocolate. Chocolate is very attractive, but the dawa, the medicine is very important. Similarly, the chocolate of Mahabharata is very attractive, but the real medicine, Aushadhi, is Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And this is how Vedavyas very intelligently compiled this literature. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that great personality, Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas, is author of all the Vedic literatures like Vedanta Sutra, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Mahabharata. Vedanta Sutra, they are the sutras, they are the formulas, and one is the what are the Vedanta Sutra? Athato Brahma Jigyasa. This is the first beginning of Vedanta Sutra, and it is meant for those who have finished their mundane inquiries in the marketplace of sense gratification. So Vedanta Sutra is for those who are done with the material enjoyment. However, others who are yet not done with the material enjoyment, they need some topics where there is material enjoyment, material entertainment, and at the same time a very strong dose of Krishna Katha. And beautifully, thus Vedavyas personally wrote this Mahabharata, which is very entertaining to Stri Shudra Dvijabandhunam. So people in general, Stri means covered the Stri, Shudra means cover all the Purusha, Kalau Shudra Sambhava. So it is not only, sometime. So we have discussed this previously. So everybody is interested in Mahabharata because it is entertaining in so many different ways. But Vedavyasji very beautifully placed Bhagavad Gita in the midst of Mahabharata so that while eating the chocolate of Mahabharata, the child also takes the medicine of Bhagavad Gita. Further, Srila Prabhupada says that Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra because Vedanta Sutra, they are written by Vedavyas, and in his spiritual maturity, complete maturity, Vedavyas wrote the final work of his, and that is Srimad Bhagavatam as a natural commentary to Vedanta Sutra. And therefore, Vedanta Sutra and Srimad Bhagavatam is relished by the devotees. Further, Srila Prabhupada says that Vedavyas had no interest writing the mundane history of the mundane activities, but for placing Bhagavad Gita inside this. Now, Vidura's reference to Mahabharata indicates that he had already heard Mahabharata. From whom? From his own father, Vedavyas. When he was away from his home and traveling, doing Tirtha Yatra, Vedavyasji personally narrated Mahabharata to Vidura Muni, Vidurji. And now Vidura wants to further inquire, going beyond Mahabharata and the pure topics of Krishna Katha. We will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you,
Thank you,
Prabhupada. Thank you,
Prabhupada.
Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhupada. Thank you,
Krishna, Prabhu.
Prabhuji.
One
Hare
small
thank you,
question.
Krishna.
sir. Thank you,
Yeah,
Prabhu.
yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, we in one of the earlier chapters, I remembered Maitreya was mentioned as Gnana Yogi. So, not in pure devotional service at that time before he meets Uddhava. So,
Right.
asking him about Krishna topics is that the right thing? Is the right person to ask?
No, but he did hear from Krishna. And he did have association of Krishna and Uddhava, and he got completely purified, a pure devotee of the Lord.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
So that was yes. So that was the effect of the association of the Supreme Lord and association of Uddhava also. It is just like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, revealing he being the greatest, one of the greatest devotee. Although before that he was a Brahmavadi and arguing with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with very brief association with Mahaprabhu, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya revealed his true colors, right, in the right sense, that he is a pure devotee of the Lord. Like that it is for Maitreya. Very similar to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya.
So
Correct?
Maitreya is also like good pure devotee, but because of his association, he became Gnana Yogi, and then he became pure devotee. Should we consider like this?
Something like that. Maitreya is a very, very great personality. And with the brief association of the Lord, he just became the very, great pure devotee of the Lord.
Yeah, thank
Just
you.
like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya.
Yes, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.